So welcome everybody. As you all know, I'm Rachel Justice, and along with Jillian Levinson, I co-lead the Woman to Woman Gynecologic Cancer Support Program. And I'm thrilled that you're joining us today for a session on telling your cancer story. You are all in for a real treat with Jessa de la Morena. I am not going to introduce her because I think normally I like to introduce speakers, but I think the whole point in this case is that she is introducing herself. She is telling her own story. She is telling you who she is and how she got here, and what that journey has been for her. So I'm going to just pass the virtual microphone straight over to Jessa. And as I mentioned, you are all really in for an exciting and interactive an educational session, and I'm thrilled to have you here, and thank you so much for your time, Jessa.
Yeah, thank you all. It's really great to be here with you all, and for those who are listening after this is recorded, I hope that all of you get something out of this. I think it'll be a nice discussion. I'm sharing my screen now. I just want to make sure that everyone is seeing it. Rachel, if you can nod your head, I don't know if you're on mute, or at least, yes? All right, awesome. Okay, so thank you. Yeah, so this is a storytelling session. I am going to share my story as well, of course, because if it's a storytelling session, then of course I must lead by example. And indeed, it's here brought to you by Woman to Woman. This is the slide that you were talking about, Rachel. I just popped it in there to start out so I can introduce myself. So yeah, the girl that you see there up on the top left is me. It was the old me. Her name was Jessica. I've changed my name to Jessa because I don't relate to that girl anymore because I've changed so much as a person. And basically this kind of shows my process, and there in the middle you see me as blonde, as how Rachel met me in person and when I was in New York a few weeks ago. So yeah, I was diagnosed with a very rare form of cervix cancer. It was a neuroendocrine small cell tumor in my cervix, and I was actually today at a genetic doctor, and he confirmed that still in Spain. I live in Spain, though I am half American, as you can probably tell, and actually I studied in New York, so I have a bit of New Yorker in me. Yeah. But yeah, he confirmed that there are still no cases of this in Spain. So I had a very rare case, and basically it was really, really thanks to my network of people and the word of mouth that I was able to get to the right doctors, because my old neighbors from New York got me in touch with a doctor there, who got me in touch with another doctor from another hospital, who got me in touch with another doctor from another hospital. We basically had to piece together kind of like what the protocol should be for what I had to do. And I went through very deep transformation. Not only did I do chemo, radiation, and brachytherapy, but at the time I also did a whole bunch of complementary therapies, which were really great for my wellness overall, my emotional, mental, and spiritual wellness. And I also got a lot of word of mouth recommendations from people related to how to work on those things, the anxiety, fear, depression, maybe all these different elements that kind of come into play because of what you're going through. So all of that really made me want to, really take action in my whole process, because even though I was going through the treatment, I wanted to also kind of take the reins of the process and do things to help myself in that process. So that inspired me to create these self-care routines, and I would literally dedicate 4 hours a day to these self-care routines. And then I decided to kind of start this blog where I started sharing my story, and I started realizing that my story was inspiring others, and I was becoming a catalyst for others. And we're going to talk about that in a moment. I created a website. People started sharing their stories from all over the world, and I'll tell you more about that in a moment as well. I later had a metastasis that went to my lungs. Long story short, I had basically doctors just sending me home, saying that there was no option for me. And I finally found one through my word of mouth network of people. Found one who was willing to take the risk and do the surgery, and I had a lobectomy, and now I've been cancer-free for 2 years. So yes, thank you. And so I have in immunotherapy every 3 weeks. So I still proudly wear my port, and it's a nice reminder every morning to myself that, to stay in the present moment. And so storytelling for me has been really powerful, not only because it has helped me heal, and we're going to talk about that in a moment, but also because I'm seeing that it's helping so many people all around me. And I'm wanting to create a bigger word of mouth effect globally. And that's why I've created this platform where we can share our stories. And so today I wanted to talk about what storytelling brings to us, what it entails, and then how you can do so using the platform that I've created that is a global platform, and how you can actually also tap into the knowledge of other people's stories that are in that platform. So if we go in, just kind of to start out with, so writing our story in general is definitely something that is very healing. It's an opportunity for us to externalize deep emotions. Now, sometimes it takes some time to get to that moment where we feel comfortable doing that. But it's definitely something that for me was very healing and useful. And some people are happy or okay to do that on their own. Others may want to do it with the support of a therapist or whatever. But find your own way and look for that as an opportunity to heal and externalize deep emotions. It also helps us recognize parts of our journey that may still need healing. Sometimes when we start talking about certain elements of our journey, we may notice that we get like really emotional and it's hard to speak and we feel kind of a knot in our throat. That's also an indication that we're still processing that emotion, and that maybe that's something that we want to still work on and maybe actually get some help about. So for me, when I started actually sharing my story, that was a really good indicator of realizing that there were certain elements that I still needed help with, and actually I was able to ask for help. It was also interesting that for a while at the beginning, when I shared my story, I would share it in third person. And I realized that sharing it in third person allowed me to talk about it kind of nonchalantly. But when I started actually sharing it in first person and saying I instead of, it would or one would or yada, yada, it basically really put me in the story. And then I started feeling those emotions and allowing myself to feel those emotions, and also to realize, actually maybe this element here of my story is something I need to work through. Maybe I have a little bit of trauma about this fear element in this certain part of my story. So it's a good indicator of things we need to work on. It also gives us the opportunity to look at what happened to us from a different perspective. And so I'm going to give you some storytelling tips, and those are going to be some questions that are going to help you, think about how you navigated that journey. Now, you don't have to necessarily have finished your journey to share your story about your journey. You could be in the middle of it. And in my case, like I'm still in the middle of it, right? I mean, I've overcome these, elements, and now I have immunotherapy. Now I have like a new element, which actually I have to add to my story in the coming days, which is that the immunotherapy has led me to develop rheumatoid arthritis. So this is a novelty that has happened in the last 2 weeks. And so now I'm seeing a rheumatologist, and it's a big mess because we're trying to figure out, okay, how do you treat the rheumatology, the issue with arthritis without reversing the effects of the immunotherapy. So I will be writing about that in my story very soon. But yeah, so you don't have to feel like you're all done with your story to actually be able to share it. You can be in the middle of it. And I think the point is that it's really about sharing, how you're dealing with the situation, what's being helpful to you, etc. It empowers us as we give recognition to ourselves and to our inner hero within us. And so it's really, when we see on paper, what we've been through and what we've done and what we've accomplished, and, how we're doing it, and, how we're choosing to live our life every day, it's kind of like an acknowledgement, and a recognition to ourselves and to that inner hero we have within. And it allows us to be vulnerable and authentic, which is actually quite refreshing. Where, I don't know, maybe some of you relate to me, but I was in the corporate world for many years. And in that world, I was one of the few women in leadership, and it was not the place to be vulnerable. So it was something that I needed some practice with. And so when I started sharing my story, it allowed me to be vulnerable and authentic in ways in which I had not had the opportunity to do so before. So now is the moment of getting, empowered or re-empowered, if you will. And I like to always kind of stop and reflect on the word responsibility. And you think, well, why is she talking about responsibility? And it's like, well, actually, I, in kind of my whole process, I started, I'm a professor in transformational leadership at a university, and I left the corporate world and I'm doing consulting in different areas, especially related to leadership. And in this context, I started actually doing a lot of research, and I realized that the term responsibility has actually a definition that is quite interesting and that is very applicable to those of us going, well, basically to any person, but especially to those of us going through adversity, to give us strength and hope. So by definition, responsibility is the ability to respond. It's how you interact with your ecosystem. And so in practice, what does it mean? It means we can decide proactively how we relate to our circumstances. Now, what does that mean? If we can relate, if every single person on this planet has the possibility to decide proactively how we relate to our circumstances, it means we all have ability to respond. And it means we can reframe our stories or whatever is happening to us in any given moment, if we have not done so already, and actually look at our story or write our story with this perspective in mind, which is basically, you're not a victim. Instead, you're a player, if you will. You're a part of, you're the protagonist of your story. We all inherently have the ability to respond. Therefore, we all know that we are not a victim. That things happen to us, yes, but we can always decide how we relate to that circumstance, right? So at times, of course, it can be difficult to take that that mindset on, especially when we're not feeling well. I think when in my case at least, and I guess you all can probably relate, when you're feeling low or don't feel well physically, it's harder maybe to look at things from that perspective. But once maybe a little bit of time has passed, it can be a little bit easier. I find that actually when I'm in the middle of a whole bunch of just really bad stuff going on, I like to look at it and just say, okay, what does this give me the opportunity to do, right? So on days when maybe I wasn't feeling well, I would think, okay, I'm feeling like crap, but this is then the perfect sofa day. And I'm going to just cuddle up with my children and relax with them. And that's it. And you know what? That's all I'm going to do today, right? So it's this decision of saying, this is happening, yes, but we all inherently have this kind of strength and inner hero to be able to decide how we want to relate. And so when we first connect to our feelings, and then we actually become vulnerable and start sharing what's happening to us, this basically creates or leads to empathy. Because interestingly enough, when we don't relate to our own feelings, it's very difficult to then think about someone else's feelings, right? And so once you have that empathy, you can also start thinking about how we can be of help to others going through adversity, right? And so what is the best way that we can be of help to others? Well, as I was saying, in my case, I kept thinking, well, why did this happen to me? Why did this happen to me? And there was no answer to this. And I thought, well, I guess, I learned a lot through this process. And, what can I do? Can I help others going through adversity, hopefully navigate it in a better way than I did, and give them maybe some of my suggestions that were the most helpful to me, right? So sharing your story is not only a healing opportunity and is something that's really great for you from a selfish perspective or for you as a person, but as well for others, it helps others realize that they're not alone in similar circumstances. It enables others to discover their inner hero they also have within, because we become catalysts of transformation for them When people see people going through transformation and going through empowerment, they also realize that they too can do the same. It provides others with hope and inspiration. And again, as I said, it's not so much about whether or not you've, what you've overcome or not. It's how you're being in your everyday, right? It's also very empowering to others because it allows them to take the reins of their healing process. And it encourages others to be vulnerable and speak up and seek out help, because your vulnerability gives permission to others to do the same. So we may actually, by sharing our story, provide a missing link of information that could make a huge difference in someone's healing journey, right? So in that context, I ask you, well, what's your story? And, you may not be ready to share your full story, and that's totally up to you. And, this is a very personal decision. In the platform that I decided to create in order to help others hear people's stories, it's actually anonymous. So, you use some pseudonym that you want, your pen name. And the question a lot of the times that people ask me is, well, Jessa, how do I start sharing my story? I don't even know where to start. And so I wanted to give you some tips, which are actually integrated in the app, that help you think about how you share your story. Now, you don't have to follow these tips. This is just a way of maybe, starting to think about how you would want to maybe start putting it down on paper, or just at least thinking about it. I have a suggestion, which is to divide your story into 3 parts. The first part being the context, what happened. And this, I would suggest having something quite small, like something like 20% of your story approx. Because in a sense, yes, I mean, just as I said, okay, yes, what kind of cancer did I have? Well, I had a neuroendocrine small cell cancer in my uterus. Fine. Okay, that's great. Now, the question is, what are we trying to achieve here? What are we trying to achieve by sharing our story? We're trying to look at things from a perspective of empowerment, of, how this transformed us, helped us, etc. And then we're trying to also be helpful for others. So I suggest that the remaining 2 parts of the story are really heavily about the changing point, which I'll go into in a moment. And lastly, lessons learned, which I'll go into in a moment. So the changing point is basically where we describe the circumstances that led you to see things differently, right? So I have here some questions which can maybe help you think about it in a different light. For example, how did you turn your challenges into an opportunity to transform and grow? From where or from whom did you find guidance? What was the most eye-opening moment for you? Did you have any revelations? What were they? How did your perspective change? Did you reevaluate your values or discover new ones? Did you discover behaviors that did not serve you? Were these repetitive? And now are you making big changes? How are you shifting your behaviors to be more in line with your values? And what motivated you to start taking responsibility of your thoughts and actions? So all these questions are meant to kind of help stimulate your thought process and thinking about how you want to share your story with others, to help them, to be of help. Because as I said, you can be a catalyst of transformation for others. And what's super important in doing that is that we are able to transmit, or to really share a viewpoint that is very constructive. Because when we're in the middle of something, what we need to see is that, that element of inspiration and light and view that's going to help us through that situation that we're living. Lessons learned. We'll gift the reader with some uplifting closing words. Maybe think about, okay, who are you now? Who have you become? How do you feel now? And having, after you've discovered your inner hero. I say a lot, and in my speaking engagements, because when I speak with companies about leadership, I say that, and I mean it really to the core of my being, that cancer was the worst thing that ever happened to me, but it was also the best thing that ever happened to me, right? So who have you become? How do you feel about what happened to you? What did you learn about yourself? How have you transformed your thoughts and behaviors? What new behaviors and values are you committed to now? What's the biggest change you made in your life? What would you have liked to know at the start of your journey that would have helped you? Imagine you're writing a manual for your old you. What would you say to someone who is embarking on a journey similar to yours? That were the things that were most helpful for you. What was that? That element that just was critical for you. So I hope these questions kind of help you jog your mind and think about, when you start thinking about writing your story, it doesn't have to be long. It can be bullets. I mean, it's just about starting to kind of think about these ways of framing or reframing the way we think about our story, and writing it in such a way where someone who has just also been diagnosed with something, whatever that something may be, can find that that guidance that they're looking for. Now, as Rachel was saying, while I was going through the metastasis, which basically the cancer that I had in my cervix went to my lungs, I decided that I needed to do something with all of this. And so I created an app called You Are the Hero. And it's called You Are the Hero because in my process, I discovered that the hero I was looking for all along outside of me was within me. And that's why I talk about my inner hero quite a lot. And basically, we're providing health and wellness in our pockets, right? And it's all about this word of mouth, and it's a global word of mouth. So it's a global app that brings you closer to the health and wellness experts you need through the lens of the empowering stories of others like you, as well as these routines that can support you. And I'll tell you about those in a moment. But really what we're here to talk about is the storytelling. So I wanted to show you that actually within the app, it guides you in the same way that I just shared with you, to be able to include your story in these elements that I just described. No, so these three elements of, first, okay, what was the context, what happened? Second, what was the changing point? And lastly, those lessons learned. And actually, you can refer back to this presentation because I put it on the slides. But if you click there and on that second little screenshot, you see there, it says, if you find more information here, you can actually click there and it will take you to that storytelling guide if you're having some doubts or questions. Everything you publish gets published onto your profile. And here I've decided my name is included there, and you see there that this is pre my name change. Now it says Jessa in there, but actually there you have the opportunity of that's where you would include your story or include a referral. And I'll tell you about that in a moment. But basically everything that you write will be reflected in your profile as a timeline. So as you write each thing, it will show up as a timeline. You can write a full story, as I said, and then you can write referrals, which are kind of like mini stories if you're not ready to write your full story yet. And these referrals are basically calls to action. They're mini stories. You basically write a referral of your preferred health and wellness professional and become their genuine ambassador by giving an authentic testimonial, which provides organic and unfiltered social proof, which is word of mouth, right? It's like the referral you would give to your family member, your sister, your best friend, about that doctor or that, yoga teacher who was so extremely helpful to you in your biggest moment of need. And again, the referral will also have a guide for you, because maybe you don't know where to start. Well, first you're going to, choose the specialty they have, and then you're going to give them a rating, and then you're going to describe the problem. And it's you write it from an anonymous perspective, because initially referrals you're not associating it yet to an actual professional. But the point is that you want to share something that was very useful for you. So say you want to talk about a personal trainer who helped you, who is specialized in oncological treatments that women are going through. So I'm working with a trainer who actually does this, and he's writing a routine for the app. And so I want to, first of all, recommend him to others. And the way I'm going to do it is saying, okay, well, the reason why I went to a special trainer that specialized in oncological patients for X, Y, and Z reason. Then what were the techniques that this person used, and how was my problem solved? And then lastly, provide any recommendation about how to make the most of this, of going to see this person. Now, once you've written the referral, you would look for them in the app. If the professional in question is not in the app yet, basically you can send them an invitation, as it says below there. It says send an invitation in blue. And then you can include their data, and then they'll get an invitation to join the community. But the point is that whether or not that professional joins the community, what you're doing is you're actually leaving some very valuable information there for others. You're telling others that are maybe going through similar things than you are, that you went to a professional that's a personal trainer specialized in oncological patients and in maybe fatigue and in how to deal with certain things. And so regardless of whether or not that trainer ends up actually signing up, and they probably will, because they'll want to be helpful to the community and be interested in partaking in the community. But even if they don't, you're still sharing that was something that was useful for you. So you're giving that information to someone, and that information is power, right? Because information allows for people to have choices. So the referral will show up regardless of whether or not the person has registered, without the name, of course, and anonymized. And then it's always going to be in your profile. So you're going to see it all there, all of your elements that you've shared, whether they're stories or actually referrals. And then you can actually link your referrals to your stories. So if you go in the app and look me up, you'll see that I have, well, you won't be able, if you look up, you won't be able to look me up. If you look up cervix cancer, you will find my story. It'll show up in the search, and as well as other stories of other women with cervix cancer or caretakers of people with cervix cancer. So you'll find a whole bunch of stories and a whole bunch of referrals, and then you'll be able to see that my story, for example, has 15 referrals associated to it. So I have written about 15 different, people who have actually been critical in my whole journey. So the idea is that through the lens of the story, we can then find either the service that could be of interest to us, and if possible, the actual professional that we can contact. So other features of the app, just so you know, you as a user, if you're not yet ready to share your story and you're not yet ready to maybe write a referral, you can go in there and read how others dealt with many of other types of adversity and learn from others' experiences. In my case, I learned a hell of a lot from people who were going through just really different things. Because a lot of the wellness elements that were part of my experience involved trauma or involved my mental health. And so others going through similar experiences in that context were very helpful for me. So in that sense, it's really interesting to see cross-pollination of information. So if we're really focused on maybe, specifically cancer, and indeed that's what we're going to be looking for because we're cancer patients. But, I have friends who had migraines who actually saw therapists and wellness practitioners that were really helpful for them from a mental health perspective or from an emotional health perspective that I also went to and that helped me too. So having access to that transversality is something that's really useful. And so not only can we, as cancer patients, help other cancer patients, our stories and our referrals can be very helpful for others going through any sort of adversity. And that's also something to keep in mind. You can also go in there and get priceless recommendations of the health and wellness professionals that were most critical in those people's journeys. So you'll see, if you find me, you'll see there those professionals that were just, that have been and were my allies all along in this journey. And I will be including very soon my rheumatologist who's helping me right now. And then you'll also be able to access powerful self-led routines to further support you and help you stay on track. So with the app, basically we're looking to kind of, again, and through it's basically through the storytelling, is reconnecting with our essence, leaving behind our limiting beliefs and behaviors, and shifting from treatment to prevention, re-empowering ourselves and aligning again with our values, because in most cases, or at least a lot of them that I've heard, and I'd love to hear from you now about it and in our discussion, but in my case, at least, when this happened to me and cancer forced me off my personal hamster wheel, I really discovered that there were a lot of things that I was doing that I was not really happy about. And that made me question, well, why was I doing them? And then it made me realize that actually, I was following a little voice in my head that was not necessarily my little voice. It was maybe either society's little voice, or, culture's little voice, or maybe your mom's little voice, or your, partner's little voice, or whatever, the little voice. But the point is, the voice that we need to listen to is the one inside, right? So it's connecting back to that essence, and then saying, okay, you know what? Since we have the ability to respond, we can actually decide to ask for what we need. And when we ask for what we need, and we align with our values, and we set boundaries and start doing what is actually really within our essence, then we start sharing and being vulnerable. And actually also that creates this cross-border information sharing, right? So the app, you'll be seeing stories in there from people from all over the world. From Kenya, from Portugal. It's in Spanish, English, and Portuguese for now, but it'll be in more languages moving forward. And then that's what's going to also connect us with each other, because healing and wellness transcends all adversities and backgrounds. Every single person on this earth is going through something, or we have someone who's going through something near us, either a family member or loved one, friend, whatever. And so, yeah, we are all one, really. And, starting to actually be vulnerable and giving permission for others to be vulnerable and ask for help really opens up, the whole world, and allows us to connect on levels that we didn't connect before. So, that's what I wanted to share with you today. I've left there the links. You can go to youarethehero.com if you want to go to the landing page or download the app using the QR. There's a narrative there as well, which you can go back to later. I'm seeing some questions here. It says, excellent presentation in the storytelling process. Did sharing your story with friends and others without cancer better understand what you are going through? And did you see more support from those you shared with? So yes, I can't answer whether they better understood me or not. I think they did, but I will say one thing, which was really, really key for me, and you might have experienced this yourself as well, is that when I first started sharing my story, people were very emotional. And so they would, like, when I was going through it, and they would get super emotional, and I was having to comfort them. And so I was starting to realize, okay, this is really hard for me because I'm going through this and I'm comforting this person. And then on top of it, the person, very well-meaning, would tell me, they would try to connect with me by sharing with me a story, a cancer story that they had experienced, but maybe not directly. So maybe they would say something like, well, my mother passed away from cancer. And I walked away the first time someone said that to me, just totally crushed, right? And so I went home and I had a horrible night and didn't sleep. And then the next morning I said, wait a minute, Jessa, this person was well-meaning. I know they love me, and they were trying to connect with me and trying to, create a connection with me and empathize. But they don't know how, right? And so, I need to, if this is something that's not good for me and it's going to destabilize me or is not going to provide me with something constructive and useful, then I need to ask people for that. So I decided to make a plan, and I said, all right, if someone starts sharing something with me next time that I speak to someone, if they start sharing something with me that is that I don't know what they're going to say, but they start sharing something, I'm going to stop them in their tracks very nicely and basically, ask them. And so basically someone would start, well, actually, and then I'd say, just a moment, please. I'm not sure what you're about to say, but I would just like to let you know that right now I need a lot of uplifting and constructive stories. So if you have one for me, I'm all ears and I would love to hear it. But if at this, time that what you were about to say is something that is not going to uplift me and make me feel great, could we please put a pin in it and speak about it at another time when I'm more available and capable of listening to this story? And so I said it with a lot of love, but very firmly. And some people would just kind of say, okay, yeah, maybe it's better we talk about this another time. And then, I was protecting myself from going through, a tough time, because, if you don't set that boundary, a lot of times some people just don't know what to say and they don't know how to connect. And sometimes we need to tell them also what we need. And so the question is, many times people don't know what to do. And so we need to tell them, we need to ask, and that requires vulnerability. So we need to be vulnerable and say, well, you know what I really need right now is, maybe I just need you to just be with me. Maybe I just, I'm on the couch not feeling well, and it would just be nice if you would just sit with me, or maybe just watch a movie with me, or, or maybe I could use, I don't know, it would be really useful if you would bring a meal for the family for me for Monday, because I'm not going to be feeling well probably. And then you tell them. And I think people aren't, they're not mind readers, and they might not have had an experience like that in their lives. And so I would really say, let's not be afraid to ask for what we want or what we need in any given moment. And really realize that, we're the ones going through the difficult moment right now. And indeed, we want to be kind in the way we ask for things, but we're the ones we need to, if we don't take care of ourselves, no one else will necessarily. So we may have people around us who have notions of what to do, but no one is inside of us and knows exactly how we're feeling and what we need more than we are, right? So yeah, some people actually, there's a story in the app that a friend of mine wrote, and it's she wrote about what she learned about how to be with someone going through cancer. And she said how she learned, well, you'll have to go in the app and look. You can search friend with cancer or something like that. But she wrote, and she says that she just learned that she just needed to be with me. That it was that was what I really most needed, is just for her to be there. And it's true. And I would just ask for, for what I needed. And she actually knows my kitchen cabinets better than I do. So yeah. So anyone else? I know we're wrapping up now, and I know it looks like we have a couple minutes left for today, and I'm super happy to come back and talk another day if you want. But anyone else have something there you're itching to say or you want to share? I'd love to hear from anyone else that's interested. A great question. And this was something that in my case, I was bursting at the seams with emotion that was just coming out, and I couldn't keep the facade. I couldn't do it anymore. I think maybe I had been, as I said, in the corporate world for 20 years and had been in this like very man world and had to really repress a lot of emotions. And so when this happened to me, it was like the floodgates were open. And yes, I mean, today I'm having a good day because I had some really great news today. And the great news is I did a genetic test because they found this new mutation that could potentially affect my daughters. And so I did this test, very scared to do the test, and it came out negative. So I'm not a mutant, if you will. Well, I was kidding around with my father when I said that, but it came out negative. So I'm super happy today, right? But I mean, we're going through a lot of crap, and we're on ups and downs. And you know what? You have the right to be on a down or on an up. And in my case, it was just, I don't know, I couldn't hold the floodgates anymore. So I would walk around just crying, like, so if I was feeling like crying, I would just cry. And I would have days of just like, it was like a faucet was turned on and I was just crying, and I would smile through the crying sometimes, or maybe just say, you know what, I just feel like crap. Can you just I just need a hug, and they would just hug you, and that's it. And you're crying, and that's fine. And it's just, I think it's this, I don't know, it's this compassion and this allowing yourself to just be where you're at right now. And, I think I don't know, we've been through so much that you've just gone through so much that you think, man, like, the worst thing that could ever happen, you already faced it. So who cares? I mean, what is it? Is it, what is someone going to think? Is it, I don't know, whatever is holding you back? It doesn't matter. Like you're like a superhero, you've been through so much, and it doesn't matter. I don't know. For me, that this is how I just kind of said, screw it. Like I'm not holding it in anymore. So everything that's coming out is coming out. And sometimes it was anger. Sometimes it was crying. Sometimes it was whatever, and it doesn't matter. And then, if I was maybe a little bit angry, I might apologize after. But I really didn't. I do relate much to what you're saying, in the sense that I have two small children. Now they're 15 and 14, but at the time when I was diagnosed, they were 10 and 8. And I made a very big effort to really hold a facade with them, because I was very afraid of, and actually when I was first diagnosed, that was my biggest fear. No, it was the impact that, so I didn't even think about, I mean, they were like, oh, you'll probably have cancer all over you. And let's just see, like I mean, it was terrible. And all I could think about was, oh my God, how this is going to impact my kids. That's all I could think about. I didn't care whether I was going to die, whether I was not going to die, whether I was going to do this or that. I was just thinking about my children. And literally the whole time I just was just focused on not traumatizing them. And so I really did hold a facade at home when, with them. Now, as they've gotten older, I realized that obviously you can start sharing a bit more, and that they know anyway, that even though I was feeling like crap and I was maybe trying to be perky around them so that they didn't think, oh, mom lost her hair and she's really sick, they can feel it. So as they've gotten older, I share more with them. But I would be walking around the street crying if I felt like it. I mean, if you don't deserve to do that, who does? I mean, I think we should all be able to express what we're feeling at any given moment. You just have to kind of say, I don't want to use profane language in this webinar because it's being recorded, but you just have to kind of not give a, but yeah, more power to you.
I get it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I see a question here. It says, what if cancer left you feeling less than and definitely not a hero? So I guess the question is, I guess what you're referring to, and I see it's a direct message to me, so I will not reveal who asked me, but I guess if you're feeling less than a hero, maybe you're feeling disempowered. And if you're feeling disempowered, maybe there's been something in your experience that has made you feel like somehow that power has been taken away from you. My recommendation would be, And again, I'm not a psychologist. I would go to a psychologist, to be honest, to discuss, because I think that going through something like this merits getting help to get through it. But if you're feeling that way, if you're feeling that way, I mean, to get to feeling empowered, you really have to kind of get in that mindset of saying, yeah, this happened, but I can decide. I can decide how I relate to it. And yeah, sometimes we're not in the best position to do that, and maybe we need a little extra help. So my recommendation would be for you to seek help. And you know what? There are so many factors, especially in I don't know. In my case, I had the chemo and the radiation I had gave me menopause, and I was 39. I went through this like crazy hormonal roller coaster. And that hormonal roller coaster was something that like no one told me about. And so, there are chemical things going on in your body as well in all of this. And so I think I guess my answer, and just to kind of give you a short answer, is compassion. Be compassionate with yourself. Realize that there are a lot of chemical things going on in your body as well. And that, just because you might not be able to get to that place doesn't mean that you won't be able to get there. But maybe right now you have a lot going on and you need a little help. So I would suggest looking into help from different angles and exploring whether maybe you have, something hormonal going on, or maybe something, that a psychologist could help with. I don't know. I would ask for help. But I think, yeah. But you will find that inner hero. I guarantee that, because as soon as you do start getting your, starting feeling stronger, you will start realizing, and you can start practicing and asking yourself, what do I want to do right now? What do I need? What does my body feel? How am I feeling? Does this make me feel good? If it makes me feel good, then let me do more of it. If it makes me feel bad, let's do less of it, and start discerning and being more choosy about everything. What we spend our time on, who we spend our time with, et cetera, et cetera. So I wish you the best. I hope you find that inner hero very soon, but I would ask for help.
Thank you so much, Jessa. This was really, really, so interesting and interactive. And I think your message is so in line with what Woman to Woman does, and what Janet kind of mentioned in the beginning, that, our women who decide to become mentors with us are all women that are survivors of various types of gynecologic cancer, and they are trained to be peer mentors. And again, I would agree with you that all of you are heroes. You're here. You are heroes, and you have shown up here looking to, figure out a way to tell your story, how to integrate your experience into your life, how to use it to inspire others. And what you don't realize is, by showing up and being part of our community, sometimes you're the one on the receiving end, and sometimes you're having a tough day and you need to be inspired. And sometimes you are the ones that are telling your story and giving advice and sharing your resources, and you are inspiring others. So, again, nobody here is allowed to say you're not a hero, because I think you're all heroes. And I'm the one who's sitting here kind of watching you all. And Jessa, you truly are a hero by, again, everything that you've gone through and are going through. And I think it's really interesting to hear from someone like Jessa, who, it's not that she's so out of the woods with this. This is something that is an everyday part of her life, and how she's incorporating, it. And I think that your storytelling tips are so useful. And I love also the story that you shared earlier about how to stop someone who might be giving you, some feedback or advice that's not. Yeah, because we have talked about that a lot. People who are well-intentioned and well-meaning, but it really just, does not work. It does not land. And so I thought that was really fantastic. So thank you so much for all that you're doing. And the Woman to Woman community, all of us here wish you good luck on your journey. And we hope that we can, stay in touch with you and have you be a part of, our community, because I think that all of our, our missions are really, really aligned. So thank you all for being here. Thank you for being the heroes that you are. And thank you, Jessa, for leading us on this really interesting, interactive journey over the past hour.
Thanks to you. And thanks to all of you for participating. And Rachel, you also have an inner hero, and you're showing it to us every day by leading this group. So, I think this is it. We all have it within us. We just have to unleash it and let it, shine bright. And yeah, so thanks to you, and I'm super happy to partake and help in any way I can.
Oh,
and I'm looking
thank you.
To
and I hope that we do stay in touch, and good luck, everybody. Have a great afternoon. And
Thank you.
So much.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank
bye,
you.
everybody.
Take care,
Thanks.
everybody.
Bye.
Ciao. Ciao, ciao.